Thank you. Okay, so very good afternoon to you. If you remember, last week we were discussing about the elasticity of demand. The elasticity, the idea of elasticity is that the reaction of demand is different to different people for the changes in the price, for the changes in income, and for the changes in the prices of the related goods. And I thought that maybe I should discuss this phenomenon with some example. So that's what I'm planning to do. Sorry. So very quickly, I just copied basically this definition of price elasticity of demand from the lecture slides, which I shared with you last week. And it says that the price elasticity of demand shows the response or the sensitivity of the demand for X good, with some X good, to a given change in the price of X good. So the quantity demanded of X good is dependent on the change in the price of X good, basically itself. Ceteris paribus, all else being equal. Now, because we are different human beings, we have different reactions. So I thought that I should include this behavioral aspect into the discussion today. So what I do here, I have fictitious Mr. A, Miss B, Mr. C, and Miss D. And I have this commodity. And this commodity X, of course, I'm measuring in the price. Two timelines. One is the past, the other is I write it down in a way that the past price was higher than the present price. So you can see that the price of commodity or good X has actually dropped from 20 euros to 10 euros. I'm sorry, I think my throat is a bit sore today. But when the price falls, we know one thing, that when the price drops, the demand would increase. And this is law of demand. But that is a qualitative thing. That is a very qualitative statement. I need to know the quantification. The proof of the pudding is in the eating. So I want to see that how much demand reacts to this change in the price. But because we don't have only one human being, we have 4 human beings here. But I took the starting demand as 100, 100, and 100 for everybody. So I'm measuring Mr. A, demand for X, Miss B, demand for X, Miss C, demand for X, and Miss D, demand for X. And here, my starting point is 100, 100, 100. So that the reason I took this same starting point, so that we can compare, we have a same base denominator. And once we have this, we can calculate the price elasticity of demand. And you can see here that F7 minus F6 shows change in demand. Divide by E7 minus E6, the change in the price of X. Bracket closes, multiply by the original price, divide by original demand. And you can see that E6 represents the starting price, and F6 represents the original or the starting demand. So the formula, if you remember, we studied last week, was proportionate change in demand due to proportionate change in the price. And how we measure it, this is the change in the demand divided by the change in the price over 2 periods, and then everything gets multiplied by the starting value of price and starting value of demand. Of course, we divide them. So this is how the formula works. And if you remember, I took some funny letters, ABS, to begin with. This is representation of the absolute value, because I don't want to consider the negative sign. Because if I consider the negative sign, the interpretation would be totally upside down. You know that 4 is higher than 2, but minus 4 is smaller than minus 2. So then, in order to make this interpretation more comparable, I'm ignoring the negative value. So all the values, if it's a negative sign, I'm ignoring it on purpose. Because if you include negative sign, there's a mathematical property that then the whole interpretation becomes totally haphazard. And you can see here that for Mr. A, the price elasticity of demand is 0.6, and Mr. A actually is represented by this blue line. Okay, but as you see here, for Mr. B, the reaction is 0.6. It means that when there is change in the price by 1%, there is a change in the quantity of X good demanded by Mr. X by 0.6%. Of course, his demand increases, but the increase or the change in demand, 0.6%, is less than the 1% change in the price. So for a given change in the price, the proportionate change in demand is less than, so 0.6. As long as this coefficient is below one, we call it less elastic demand. So you can see that for Mr. A, the demand for commodity X is less elastic. 0.6 means that the price, if drops by 1%, Mr. X will increase his demand by 0.6%. I repeat, if the demand for X good falls by 1%, Mr. A would demand this commodity X more by 0.6%. And if the price increases by 1%, then the fall in the demand of X good as demanded by Mr. A would drop by 0.6%. So basically, the sensitivity of the price of the demand to the price is less than proportionate. And the rule of thumb is that if it is below 1, then we say that the demand is inelastic. If it is equal to 1, then we say that demand is elastic. And if it is more than 1, then we say demand is more elastic. If the coefficient is 0, then we say that the demand is perfectly inelastic, not at all change in the demand. And if the demand is, the change in the demand is massive, mammoth, so big that it's not able to be measured, so much so that the change in the demand is infinite, then we say that the demand elasticity is perfectly elastic. And here we have one more person, Mr. B, Miss B, sorry, I have to be general, balanced. And here we find that for the same change in the price, the reaction in terms of change in demand by Miss B is stronger than that by Mr. A. And you can see that I apply the same formula basically, and the coefficient is 1. The 1 is elastic, is like proportionately elastic. So it means that when the price drops by 1%, then the demand increases by 1%. And if the price increases by 1%, demand drops by 1%. And this is very proportionate, balanced reaction by Miss B. Okay, and where is Miss B here? I think she is here on the gray line. And you can see that if I draw this hypothetical angle here, if it is 1, then it should be about 45-degree angle. Those students who know a little bit of geometry, you will find that if I draw this angle of gray line on the x-axis, the angle is 45-degree here, because the reaction is perfectly in proportion. And then we have Mr. C. Mr. C's reaction is even more sharper. And here we find that the elasticity of demand is actually 2. When you apply the same formula, we find that the reaction by Mr. C is 2. In other words, if the price of X good drops by 1%, then the quantity demanded of X good by Mr. C will increase by 2%. Vice versa. If the price of X good increases by 1%, then the quantity of X good demanded by Mr. C would fall by 2%. So here, the demand is more reactionary, is more reactive, is more responsive, is more sensitive to the change in price. So Mr. C seems to be the most, what do we call it, sensitive consumer to the price. And Mr. C represents by this line. Oh, no, not this one. This orange line, yeah? So this is Mr. C here. And you can see that, I don't know whether you notice or not, as you move from 0.6, the blue line, to 1, the gray line, to 2, the orange line, you see that as the elasticity of demand increases, the straight line demand curve becomes less slopey. Not sloppy, but less slopey. The slope goes down. Can you see it? For example, I can say that it's difficult to climb the blue line, but it's comparatively easier to climb the gray wall, the line, and it's much simpler to climb the orange line. So there is some kind of relationship between the slope of the demand curve and the elasticity of demand. As the elasticity of demand increases, 0.6, 1, 2, you see that the slope is becoming less and less. So the demand curve has less slope or become more flat once the elasticity of demand increases. But we have one exceptional case. We have one exceptional case when, and that is we have a very strange consumer called Miss D. What is Miss D doing here? Miss D, the price drops by 100%, half the price. So the price become from 20 to 10, and there is no change in the demand. The quantity demanded by Miss D remains same. If that is the case, that Miss D has no reaction to demand, we can say that the elasticity of demand as shown by Miss D is totally inelastic. So we can say it's perfectly inelastic. And you can see there's a yellow line here. And this yellow line shows the reaction. So you can see that the yellow line reaction is between the price of commodity X and the demand by Miss D. And you can see that here, the demand is perfectly inelastic. So it means that out of all these consumers, because we are different human, remember the role of behavior, the role of psychological aspect is very important in economics. Not all the consumers are homogeneous. Not all the consumers react in the same way. We react differently. And you can see that the most reactive consumer is Mr. C, and the most non-reactive consumer is Miss D. It means that if I'm a seller of this commodity X, listen carefully. If I'm a seller of this commodity X, why do I'm lowering the price? Well, I'm lowering the price in the hope that consumer will buy it more. And maybe all the stocks I have in my warehouse, in my storage, would be demanded consumed. I would be very pleased to have a consumer like Mr. C, because a bit of lowering the price and massive amount of increase in his consumption. But I would not like to have the consumers like Miss D. Because even if I lower the price, the demand doesn't change. So at the end of the day, I'm a losing party, in the sense that on the one hand, she doesn't change her demand, but I charge less price from 20 to 10. So I'm losing 50% of my revenue, but there is no reaction to Miss D's consumption pattern. On the other hand, if I lower the price 1%, Mr. C consumes double. So here, even if I lower the price, if I take less price now, but there would be so much of demand increase, the commodity which I sell, that I would be able to offset. So I lose by low price, but overall my revenue will go up because the elastic. So this is why it's very important that when you are a company and you are planning to launch a product, it is very important that you make some kind of consumer survey and you find out that what type of consumers there are in. Generally, I think I discussed last week also that the consumers, those goods which are consumed by the middle income people, they are normally more reactive to the change in the price. On the other hand, those commodities which are essentials, they're not very price sensitive. Let's say the food become expensive, the food become cheap. I think our consumption pattern is normally very fixed. It does change, of course, but it doesn't change so much. So for the bare necessities, the food, clothing, and shelter, the price sensitivity is generally less. But if the commodities are comforts or luxuries, in that case, there can be alternative explanations. But you can see here that the different consumers, different demand. Okay, and if there is a society where we have only 4 consumers, then we can also find the market demand. I didn't write it down in my original spreadsheet, but I can do it now. So if there's a market demand, then I can just add all the demand basically made by all the consumers. So if I have sum of the demand by all the consumers, and sum of demand by all the consumers. And if I have to change this formula, so if I have to find the overall market demand, because I should be interested in the individuals, but I should also be interested in the overall market reaction. So then I find that if I carry on this formula further, then the elasticity of demand is 1.5, but let me check if the formula is correct or not. So we have J7, J6, well, not F7, it should be E7 because E is our starting point. So if I make it to E, and this also E, and here also E. Yeah. So we can say, so what I can say, it's a very interesting situation. So even though some consumers are having less reaction, some are proportionate, some are more, some are no, but overall, the market demand is 0.9. So basically, if I'm a seller, I draw a conclusion that, hey, now I'm going to launch a new product in the market. And if I want to woo my potential customers by lowering the price by 1%, then my revenue will only increase by 0.9%. So people's reaction is overall less than proportional, but 0.9% is quite okay, right? So 0.9 is overall that there's a 90% reaction to the change in the price. So whenever there's a change in the price, the demand reaction is 90%. And if I have to draw this line also, if you want me to, I can draw it. If you want me to draw this another line, select data, add series name, let's call it market demand. Demand. If I choose the y-axis, same price, which is 20 and 10, and the x-axis is 4 and 580. And okay, and there we go. Do we get any? Yeah. So this is the market demand we get. So this is how it looks like. this blue line is now. Well, I can change the color if you want, but it's very different. So I can easily recognize that it's the market demand curve. So yeah. Questions, comments about this calculation?
Yes, I have one question.
Yes.
If the price is down for one, and market demand will grow in 0.9, does it mean that I will gain as a producer, I will gain less than I will spend on this, or if I have market demand in plus, so I will gain something?
You can see this way that the 0.9 is not very low either. So if your company's strategy is that, look, there are different companies, they have different approach. Some companies, they think that consumers are price sensitive, and they try to lower the price in the hope that consumer will buy more. But in some cases, in some products, the consumers are not very price sensitive, they're more quality conscious. Here I assume that the quality, even if you lower the price, the quality remains same. Okay, but some consumers, they are not very price reactive. It also depends upon the type of commodity. As I said, that if the price of food becomes cheaper today, I don't see any reason that why we should start consuming double food. Should we eat double portion? I can assume that the price was high before and you were eating less than normal. But when the price drops down, you can only increase your food consumption to the normal. But if you're already consuming normal food, normal quantity of food, and the price becomes lower, there's no reason to eat more than normal share. So 0.9 shows that, hey, if I'm a company's director, then if the coefficient of price elasticity for the whole market is 0.9, it tells me that people react. If this market demand was 0.2, I mean, 0.9 is not 1, but still it's 90%. So I think if the price sensitivity is below 0.7, I should change my strategy, not lowering the price. Rather, I should try to, for the given price, maybe I can increase the quality of the product. Have you seen the Coke and Pepsi war? Coke and Pepsi are the classic example. They fight. If you look at the advertisements by Coke and Pepsi, they really make fun of each other. Rather, sometimes they go beyond the healthy competition and they literally abuse each other in their advertisements. Okay, but have you noticed that none of them is lowering the price? That they don't cut the price because they're very wise. They never cut the price because they know that the consumers, especially in those countries where the weather is hot, they would be consuming the beverage, and because they are like almost like these two companies, Coke and Pepsi, almost rule the economy, and the whole market of the cold drinks. We call it duopoly. Duopoly is when there are two sellers, they almost occupy the entire market. So in that case, then I can understand that if, for example, there are 50, 60, 100 companies making cold drinks, soft drinks, then there'll be more price competition. But because there are two companies only, so in a way, they have some kind of unsaid arrangement, understanding that, hey, we can fight, we can compete, we can say whatever to each other, but we will not cut our prices. So we will have rather non-price competition. Okay, so if you are selling a product where there are few sellers, right, then don't indulge in the price war, because then you'll make a big loss. If you are selling something where the market is more competitive, then you will have less control over the price. Then you have to take the price which is determined by the market. But in this case, you can see that if the price, I would say as a rule of thumb, if the price sensitivity, the elasticity of demand is 0.7, then I think I should be very careful in reducing the price, because even by reducing the price, I will not be able to increase my demand. On the contrary, I should consider that if I increase the price, because if I increase the price, the demand will not shrink too much. But then I have to face the music of the regulators. Then the regulator, the controller will be very angry with me, and my company could be punished by the law. Remember, maybe not last week, but the previous week, I shared a web link with you in which the link was basically saying that in the wake of Corona, we have this COVID-19. In many countries, the companies are increasing the prices of essential goods. And if you increase the price of essential good, whose elasticity of demand is less, because even if you increase the price, consumers still consume. If you increase the price of food, people still have to eat food. So in that situation, the lawmaker has to come in the picture. Okay, so it's very important for you to consider the price increase or decrease in the case of those commodities whose elasticity of demand is more. Okay, because if the elasticity of demand is less, then by lowering the price, you will not gain much. And by increasing the price, you'll be punished by law. So very careful.
Thank you.
Yeah. Before introducing a new product to the market, how do we calculate the market demand? Of course, we can. Whenever you start a new product, whenever you launch a new product, there's always a prototype. You launch that product to a very few cross-section of consumer, and you see the reaction. You make more in-depth interviews of them. So you will not be able to exactly measure the market's reaction, but by having a good sample, representative sample, some people are, okay, you launch this product to only 100 consumers, rich, poor, middle income, urban, rural, male, female, young, very young, old, retired, working, self-employed, employees. So you can divide this sample on different, based on different variables. And that reaction can show you that how it would, like we have, for example, it's something similar to the exit poll before the election. It is something similar to the movie review before the movie is released in the theater. So we can have some kind of a review of the market already, or we can find the similar products sold by the other people, that how consumers have reacted to their new products. So yes, we have some benchmarks. Shiny? Mm-hmm.
I sent you.
Okay.
You sent me privately, so I sent it to you. If you could check, or should I speak out?
No, I can read out.
Okay.
I can read it. I will not read out loud. Actually, Yanni, it's opposite. If the price elasticity of demand coefficient is less, that shows that it's a essential good. For example, look at this reaction by, I want to bring to your notice a reaction of A, Mr. A, and Miss D. Especially Miss D. The price drops. Let's say this is rent, a rental apartment. The apartment's rent drops by 20 to 10. Miss D thinks that, hey, one apartment is enough to live. So why should I have two apartments to rent? And she does, okay, one can argue that when the rent drops, then why don't you move to the cheaper apartment? She doesn't think it's necessary because she thinks that it's so important for her to stay in the same apartment. The price of food drops, but Miss D thinks that she's fine. She will not eat more. She will eat the same amount. The price of clothing goes down. She thinks, hey, I have enough of clothes in my wardrobe. Why should I buy more? On the other hand, we have people like Mr. C who react very sharply. So I would say that for people like Miss D, why do I say Miss D? Because here the elasticity of demand is 0. And something similar, Mr. A, where the elasticity of demand is 0.6. So I can say that Mr. A and Miss D, their elasticity of demand is comparatively low. Maybe they consider commodity X as essential. On the other hand, this commodity X could be luxury to Mr. C. How? The price was high. For Mr. C, this commodity X was a distant dream. So the consumption was very few. But once the price drops, look at the reaction, double the reaction. Because you wanted to buy this X commodity, it was beyond your reach. You were consuming it, but not so much. But now it's cheaper. You want to buy it. For example, today, if the electric cars or some other electronic goods which are people really looking for, they're looking up to buy them, if they become cheaper, look at the reaction of consumers. It can exceed far more than the change in the price. So it depends upon the perception. For Mr. C, the same thing could be a luxury, but for Miss D, the same thing could be a necessity. So if you are producing a product who you think is a luxury, then I think you can indulge in the price competition. Because then by lowering the price, you can win a big share of market. But if the commodity you sell is more like an essential or most of the consumer, look, if you lower the price in a developing country, in the underdeveloped countries, people are consuming less already. Maybe their food requirement is more, but they're consuming less. If you lower the price in those countries, the consumption of food will be more. Demand for food will be more. On the other hand, if you're lowering the price in the OECD country, people are having their food pattern fixed. They have enough of food in kitchen, and maybe there is no reaction at all. So elasticity of demand can vary based on two consumers living in the same society or living in the different societies. Okay, all right, got it. Very quickly, I have something else for you also. I have another way of measuring the elasticity of demand. And you can see here, I take more than one price. So I assume that the price is 10, then it goes to 9, it goes down to 1. And then the demand, I took the opposite figure. I took these numbers on purpose, actually. Demand increases definitely when the price is low. And the expenditure is always equal to the price per unit multiplied by the amount of it, the quantity of it. So you can see that the expenditure is Q column multiplied by the R column. And here you see that the green line, the green part, just focus on the green part. Notice the Q column, the price column. The price is falling. When the price falls, people demand less. People demand more. When the price falls, people demand more. but people demand so much more that their overall expenditure is increasing. Can you see here? The price is dropping, but people's expenditure is increasing. And how do you measure the expenditure? Expenditure is equal to price times quantity. Price is low, but the increase in quantity is so much that the overall expenditure is increasing. So this is very paradoxical that on the one hand, the price is falling, demand increases, but demand increased so much that your expenditure start increasing. So when the price was very high and demand was very low, your expenditure was 10. And look at that now. Your reaction is so much sharp that the price, with the fall in the price, the expenditure is increasing. And if this is happening, then we call it more elastic demand. More elastic means more than one. The coefficient is more than one. The coefficient is more than one. I write in green so that I keep the same thing. Yeah, this is green. Now look at here. The price is 6. The expenditure was 30. The price falls. Expenditure is still 30. So if that is the case, then we can see that the demand is basically, what to say, is equal to 1. So the elasticity would be equal to 1. And when the price drops and the expenditure also drops, then we can see that the elasticity is less elastic. So there is it's less elastic. So the red portion is the less elastic. So green one, when you look at the green part, it shows more responsiveness, more elastic demand. When you see the black one, it sees, and if you see the red one, then it's less than 1. Let's call it red. Oh, sorry, it should be here. And if I plot it, then this is how the graph should look like. So on the y-axis, I measure the price. So let me call it price then. I didn't say it, I should have. And on the x-axis here, I call it expenditure. If this is the case, and you can see that the price falls, but when the price falls, the expenditure is increasing. Can you see here? The price is falling, but the expenditure is increasing. So this is where the elasticity of demand is more than 1. And then look at these 2 points. The price falls, but the expenditure remains same. It doesn't change. And then there is this portion that the price is falling, but the expenditure is also falling. When the price falls and the expenditure fall, it means that the quantity demanded is increasing, but not too much, so that your overall expenditure is less. So here you can see that in this part, the elasticity of demand is more. In this part, elasticity of demand is equal to 1. And in this part, the elasticity of demand is below 1. So this basically is representation of the red line, the red part of the table. This is the black one, and the upper one is the green one. So this is how we measure the elasticity of demand. So if you are a company and you want to launch this product and you can take some sample, but the sample should be big and representative. And if you find these kind of graphs, then you can feel some kind of pulse of consumers that, you know what, is it even worth launching this product, not only launching the product, but also lowering the price than the competitors, given the same quality. Can you win the market? Well, not if the reaction is like this, but yes, if the reaction is like this. Okay, so it's very important for you to have this kind of consumer's reaction. Questions, comments? So I resume, the recording is, yeah. So I go to the next sheet. Can you see here? There are 3 spreadsheets actually in the one file. So I call it EY, E subscript Y, because here I want to study the Y. Normally is a sign in economics for income. We never write for I, because I stands for investment. I mean, that's a normal, you know, the symbols we use in economics. I haven't seen any book where they show income as I. No, I normally is a standard letter for abbreviation for investment. Okay, income elasticity of demand. So EY, basically. Elasticity, Y, income. The responsiveness, the definition is same. The demand for X good, but here we change to income, not to the price. And what is the relationship between, okay, I want very quick reaction from you. What is the relationship, what does the law of demand tells? Law of demand tells the relationship between what and what?
Price and demand.
Price and?
Demand.
Demand, yeah, very good. What about the income demand? The price demand is the relationship between price and demand, and the income demand is the relationship between income and demand. And I want to ask you something now. What do you think is the relationship between income and demand?
The more income you have, the more demand will
Excellent. So the more income you have, the more demand you do. And I'm talking about the normal product. I'm not talking about those exceptional goods. I'm talking about the usual normal products. When your income, when you become richer, when you have more income, you consume more. You see what? Now most of you are students, but once you have the full-fledged job and your income would be several times more, I don't think you will be having the same amount of demand. The same products, maybe you will demand more. Because now you might be having limited income and you think that, you know what, I don't want to go beyond my means. But once you have a proper increase, larger, higher regular income, then you will be consuming more. Okay, so here we see that in the past, the income was 200 euros and now the income is 400 euros. And again, we have Mr. A, we have same characters. And the demand for X product. When the income increases, doubles rather, you can see 2 to 400. You can see that the demand for X by Mr. A is increasing for sure. Actually, demand is increasing for everybody except Miss D. I don't know, Miss D is some strange character. But here you find that the coefficient of income elasticity of demand, E subscript Y, is 0.3. Basically 0.3 means that if your income increased by 1%, your consumption of X good increased by 0.3%. And if income goes down by 1%, then your consumption goes down by 0.3%. So the reaction of the demand is less than proportionate. But I'm talking about Mr. A, not everybody. For Mr. B, it's interesting. Your income doubles, your consumption doubles, and you find that the coefficient is equal to 1, 100%. And here for Mr. C is even more interesting case. Your income doubles, but your consumption is more than doubled, Same way, if income is half, your consumption is reduced to less than half. So reaction is 1.4 either way. But then we have this nice character, Miss D. Once again, the income is doubled. She doesn't change her consumption. So in that case, the coefficient of income elasticity of demand is 0. So there is no reaction to it. Once again, the same arguments hold that if you are a firm, you want to launch a new product, a new process, a new service, you should be very careful that what type of reaction, what type of sensitivity the consumers have. And once you have it for 4 consumers, and if we have this prototype, we experiment on 4 consumers, we can also have the market demand as well. And the formula is same, basically. Sum of the reaction, sum of the quantity demanded by 4 people, and then we go down here. And in this case, the reaction seems to be, okay, let me see. So if I take the formula up, but I need to make a change, J9, J8. The starting point is must be E because I'm considering the price change. Sorry, E8 and E8 here again. And here we go. So 0.675. So the overall market elasticity of demand, the income elasticity of demand is 0.675. So basically, I get a lesson that if the people in my consumer segment, if their income increased by 1%, I can expect that the market demand will increase by 0.68%. It's not very high actually, but it's not very low either. So it's like a middle. It means that this sector, this market is basically the middle type of middle income consumers whose reaction is very measured and very calculated. And you can see here that if I take the income on y-axis and the demand on x-axis, you can see that this blue line is less reactive, and you can see again that when the reaction is less, the slope is sharp. Look at the slope is very sharp, more than 45-degree angle. And if it's proportionate, the slope is less sharp, more flat. And if you have to make a hypothetical angle here, you can make 45 degrees. And then we also have this very sharp reaction. Who's that fellow? Mr. C. And here, the gray line. And you can see the reaction. So again, and then we have a D, the reaction is none, so the yellow line. And if you want me to draw the overall market sensitivity, how sensitive is the market to the overall, then I have to go here and I need to do something, select the data. Let's call it market demand. No, not here. Add here. The market demand. And the y-axis is the income change, which is here, 200 to 400. And the x-axis, the outcome is the market demand, which is this, 4 to 600. And there we go. So this is the overall shape of the, oh, what happened to it? Did I miss something? Okay, maybe I have to do it again. Why is not getting saved here?
I think you should click OK at the end when you
Sorry?
do it. You didn't click OK at the end. You
Oh, my word.
close
Okay.
it.
Last time I try, yeah? This time I'll be careful. I try not to repeat the mistake this time. Yeah? Okay?
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you. So this is how the overall market demand looks like. Questions, comments about income elasticity of demand. Okay, we go to the third sheet, and here I put in the subscript C. C means cross elasticity of demand. Cross means when something else depend upon when some things demand depends upon something else's price. I can be more specific what I mean to say. Last week we did study that tea and coffee are substitutes. Sir, you think so?
Yes,
Tea and coffee? I think they're substitutes. I'm equally good. I can't drink too much of coffee, of course.
Yeah.
But if I have a choice, I can consider them as substitutes.
Definitely, because both are hot drinks, and if sometimes in case you don't have, there is no availability of tea,
Yeah.
you
Easily can have coffee.
can have coffee.
Yeah.
There are some exceptions, but most of the people, a general public,
Yes.
you can say that have coffee.
I have a strange habit. I can only have the one type of tea, and that is the English breakfast tea.
Okay.
But if I have the green tea, I can never. I mean, all the good teas actually, I can never have.
Well, you are admitting your.
Yeah. So if I'm traveling somewhere and there is no English tea, then I only have coffee.
But it's very easily available everywhere. If you can say, see that if somewhere there is coffee available and someone don't want to take that, there must be somewhere tea.
I'm sure there is tea, but that's not the English tea. That's a green tea.
Yes, mostly.
And all the healthy food I try to stay away.
Even most Asian people, not Asian, but Pakistani and Indian people.
Okay. Yeah, so the tea and coffee may not be the perfect substitutes, but at least they are substitutes. Yeah, there is some degree of substitutability between the two. All right, now here, look at the story. The price of tea is reacting the demand for coffee. Can you see here? I on purpose wrote, and look at the definition I wrote. The cross elasticity of demand, EC, shows the responsiveness, the sensitivity of the demand for X good to a given change in the price of Y good. So on purpose, I have taken these two different things. The demand for X depends on price of Y. Demand for coffee depends on price of tea, like that. Now here, and once again, ceteris paribus. That's very important, because if you don't keep this assumption, then all the variables can come together and attack you. So assumption is like risk management. Assumptions keep you safe. Right. Tea has become expensive from past to present. Obviously, when the tea become expensive, the tea consumers would run away to coffee. And once again, we have A, B, C, D, E are lovable characters in the story. And you see that when the tea become double expensive, Obviously, Mr. A consumes more coffee now because he consumes less tea. So to fill the gap, he consumes more coffee, but the reaction is less than 100%. The reaction is less than 1. So you can see here that the change in the quantity demanded of coffee divided by the change in the price of tea, and then everything multiplied by the original price of tea divided by the original quantity of coffee. So when you put it in this formula, you find that it's 0.6%. So basically, what it means that when the price of tea increases by 1%, the demand for coffee increases by 1%, 0.6%. I repeat, when the price of tea increases by 1%, the demand for coffee increases by 0.6%, according to Mr. A. But when you see Mr. B, Miss B, the reaction is 10% exactly. Double the price of coffee, double the consumption, double the price of tea, double the consumption of coffee. And here for Mr. C, double the price of tea, more than double the consumption of coffee, 1.4, more than 1. And here we have our favorite Miss D, no reaction. Double the price of tea, no change in the consumption of coffee. It remains same. So the coefficient becomes 0. And once more, you can see the blue line, Mr. A, yellow, orange rather, Miss B, gray, Mr. C, and the yellow, Mr. D. So basically, once again, you can have some assessment that as the slope, as the elasticity, as the cross elasticity of demand increases, the slope becomes sharper and sharper. No, I said opposite. When the elasticity increases, the slope becomes less sharper, rather flatter. So you can see here, this was less elastic. This was more elastic, the orange. And the gray was even more elastic. So you can see that as the coefficient of elasticity increases, the shape of the demand curve becomes less slopy or more flat. And when the elasticity is the least, then the slope is super sharp. Okay, and once again, you can have the market demand. Which is sum of this, both consumers, all the 4 consumers. And likewise. And then we can see the overall reaction of the overall market cross. So if you want to, so if you are a seller of coffee, then you can see the reaction, that how much the overall market reacts. So this is nothing but the same. I extend the formula here, but I have to slightly be careful that this is not F but E, and this is also E, and this is also E. I tried to put the dollar sign, but somehow it was a strange way. So this is 0.75 reaction. So it means that if the tea becomes expensive by 1%, then the demand for coffee will pick up in the overall market by 0.75%. So, well, it's fine. It's not too bad. And we have more data. And this is the market demand reaction. And remember, we have two types of cross. The one cross is substitutes, and the second cross is the complementary. In substitute, when the price of tea increases, well, tea is an example, then demand for tea will fall. And when the demand for tea falls, the demand for coffee will increase. So these two are substitutes. But then we have another category of cross called complementary. What are complementary products? Can somebody tell? What are complementary products?
Like which depend on each other.
Whose demand go together. So when you demand more of one, you have to demand more of other also. And when you demand less of one, you demand less of other also. So in this case, the cross is between, so here the commodity is car, and the price of car, because I didn't want to write 40 and 20 euros for, so to be realistic, I put here 1,000. So it's a 40,000. Let's say that in the past, the car price was 40,000. And now the price of, so the price is now half. And to run the car, you need petrol, the gasoline, okay? And you see that here, the reaction of consumer. So when the price of car goes down, so I assume that you have more cars, then obviously you will demand more petrol also. And you see the reaction here, it's 0.8. On the contrary, why it's 1? If I make it 150, will it work? Yeah, so 150, yeah. So this is because I wanted to have 1 also. So on purpose, I have this data that, that for one person, I have elasticity of demand equal to 1. For the other, it's less than 1. For the other, it's more than 1. And there is always somebody which is 0. So you can see here that for Mr. A, this blue line, and then for Miss B, it's the orange. Once again, very proportionate. Almost, not almost, but exactly 45-degree angle. And then here we have Mr. C, who buys so many cars, when the car becomes cheaper, that his consumption of gasoline really increased 2.8 times. And this is the gray part. And then we have our lovely Miss D. She has no reaction. So you can see that here the yellow line is this. And that's it. And then of course we can have the market demand if you want. But meantime, if you have any question that why the shape looks like this, you can ask me. So the market demand is basically the sum total of all the individuals living in the society. So but see here, the overall market demand is really is more than 1. So if you are a automobile, if you are an oil company, and let's say that there is no other alternative technology, and this is why we use the phrase, you can ask me, Shab, if this happens, that happens. Well, I keep my position safe when I write this ceteris paribus. It means no change, given situation. No strange situations, everything. So in this case, if in this kind of society, if in this kind of economy, the cars become cheaper, then the oil companies will gain a lot. Because their reaction, overall market demand, you can see here is 1.15, which means more than proportionate. So if cars become cheaper by 1%, then the oil company's revenue will go up by 1.15%. So they will have this kind of jackpot, you know. So questions, comments, anything?
Yeah. If the price of the car is lower now, but why the demand rises? Just you cannot over fulfill the fuel tank in your car more than it's possible. So this huge variation, especially in the case of Mr. C, it's at the same time interesting and strange. So how is it possible?
When the price of car falls, then we assume in the backdrop that because see, here is the price of car and here's the demand for petrol. So when the price of car falls, we assume that Mr. C will buy more cars. And earlier, he might be using some public transport or his offices. He can buy some car for his office also, for the personal use also. Maybe his wife was also using public transport. So because the car has become cheaper, he really want to buy more cars. And as a result, or earlier, even if he doesn't buy many more cars, but his dependence on car. Earlier, some parts, his child used to go to the school in the bus, but now he thinks that, okay, I'll drop him. So the overall consumption of car increases because the car has become cheaper. Now, if the consumption of car has increased, then obviously you need more petrol to drive.
But to be more precise, the demand for car also rises.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying. When the car becomes cheaper, the demand for car will become more. And when the car demand increases, then obviously you use more petrol. Remember, I'm not studying here price elasticity of demand. I'm not studying price elasticity of demand here. I'm studying cross elasticity of demand. Cross means when the price of X changes, but that have a knock-on impact on the demand of Y. So the goods are related. Like tea and coffee are related. Automobile and petrol are related. I agree with you. The price of car falls, the demand for car increases. But when the demand for car increases, what will you do with the cars? You will drive them, won't you? But when you drive them more, then you need more petrol. Again, the reaction is different. This guy also buy more car, but he doesn't start driving too much. So the reaction is positive, but not too much. This is exactly balanced. And here it's really, this guy, maybe Mr. C, was cursing the public transport a lot and was praying to the divine powers that, hey, one day I wish the prices of cars really go down so that I drive more cars. I drive my car, my family drive the car, my employees drive the car. So I become less and less dependent on public transport. And as a result, his reaction is 2.8 times more. But when he consumes more car, obviously he has to pay for more petrol also. And then Miss B has no reaction. Maybe her consumption pattern are very fixed, very rigid, and no change in the lifestyle. But Mr. C makes a big change in his lifestyle, more than proportionately. Miss B is equally proportionately. Mr. A Not too much, but not too less either. So it also shows the behavioral aspect of different consumers. So in the market, when you think from the seller's point of view, when you think from the business's point of view, for you, it's very essential to have an idea about, you need to feel the pulse of the market. And elasticity of demand is a very good way to feel the pulse of the market. Did I answer your question?
Yeah, that was my mistake. I thought that the amount of car is constant, so this would be strange that the same amount of cars require more petrol.
No. Did I say that you have the same amount of car?
No, this was my mistake. Sorry.
No, that's not a mistake. So when the price of car increases, let's see the story. I'm not considering the demand for car here. So the price of car falls, we can see it, but we don't see in the table that the demand of car has increased also. But when the demand for the car increases, and what we see is the demand for petrol increases. So we keep the demand for car, it's in our mind, but we don't show in the table. The reason is that we are studying here cross elasticity of demand. But if you study price elasticity of demand, here, look at here. When the demand for car increases, the demand for car will increase. When the price of car decreases, let's say this is commodity X is car. Let's call it car. X, okay. Let's call it car. And here, because the price is, I'm considering car, so let's be a bit realistic. So I can call it then 1,000 euros. It doesn't matter. So when the price of car goes down, there are more cars demanded by now because, of course, Mr. A, 100 cars. I don't know, but maybe there's some, because it depends upon the data. But forget about the numbers, but the main thing is that the consumption of cars increase. The consumption of cars increase. The consumption of cars increase. Now, what is the proportionate reaction? It depends upon different consumers differently. Maybe these are not people, these are companies, the corporate clients. And the corporate clients buy cars in bulk. The prices of car have gone down. Maybe Shell wants to buy, Shell have 100 cars. And when the price of cars goes down, Shell wants to buy 30 more cars for the office purposes. British Petroleum increase to 150. Microsoft increases to 200. There's one company, some old-fashioned public sector, the state ownership, it doesn't make any change. So whatever is true for humans, the individuals can also be true for the corporates. In economy, we don't distinguish between, we have two types of individuals. We have the living beings and we also have the corporate beings. So the companies are also considered as beings in economics and business. So yeah. So here, the main thing is that here you see the price of car and the demand for car, because I'm considering price elasticity of demand. Here, you become richer and you consume more cars because your income has gone up. Here, I'm considering cross. Cross is of two types. Substitutes, when the products fight for each other, you have one, you don't take the other. So you have to make a choice between the two. But then we have the complementary products, which if you consume more, you have to consume something else more also. Like when the price of car falls, you buy more cars, but then in the process, you have to consume more diesel or petrol also. That's the idea. Because in reality, the goods, products are related, and the relation can be of two types. Relation means cross, the crossover. The relationship could be complementary, or it could be substitute. There is also one more relationship called joint, which I am not considering here. The joint product is more applicable to the farmers. Seher, you may be aware that when you have, when the farmers grow, for example, wheat, then they also grow byproduct of wheat is the husk.
Yes.
Hay.
Yeah.
What do we call them? Hay.
Yeah.
And you don't have to produce, you can't distinguish the cost of production of wheat and hay.
Yes.
Because hay comes by product. But you can sell the hay in the market for the price as well.
Right.
So the point I'm trying to make here is that the products have the relationship. And usually the relationship is substitute, complementary, and joint. Maybe I'll think about the joint products, that how can I show their elasticity of demand. But obviously you don't produce them for the sake of producing them. They just come by as a byproduct. Okay, any question, any comments? Miss D is the richest, okay. All right, so that's it for today. If you don't, unfortunately, I couldn't do the lecture on Tuesday, but we have both online in class. We'll be having the in-class lecture.
Yes.
And yeah, because today is something exceptional.
Yes.
Can you share? Of course, I'll be sharing the Excel. I have shared actually already. It's in Moodle, by the way. And I also informed you by messaging that this spreadsheet is available in Moodle. But now, because I made some changes, so I would be deleting the previous file, and now I fill in with the new file. So yeah. All right. We can wait for a few minutes more if you. Last Tuesday, I didn't get. Shiny, did you see the message in Moodle?
No, Sham.
You can check the news.
Or the news?
You have shared in the news.
In the news, yeah.
Yes.
In the news, yeah. So always check in Moodle the two pieces of information, news and discussion forum. And discussion forum is something where we discuss. And I thought that if I say there's no lecture tomorrow, what is there to discuss?
Yes.
So I put in the news. So always check the messages in both news and discussion.
And there is one more difference.
Uh-huh.
When you put something in news,
Uh-huh.
it don't send automatic message to every student.
It doesn't go?
No, because I also didn't receive any message.
Really?
But yes, but you sent me the private message. But if you send something in the discussion forum,
It goes to everybody. My apologies. Shiny, I know the problem now. Next time, if I have to inform you something, I would inform by discussion forum, because Seher is also saying that maybe the news thing is not doing very good. Okay. I don't want to use the word. If it isn't, yeah, so I can use the word. It's not recorded. Yeah, so it's crap. So I'll inform in the future through the discussion forum, anything. Sorry about it. So. And that's it then. Let's meet next week. Enjoy yourself. Well, there's one message. Use news since it sends a message. Discussion. What? The discussion forum doesn't send a message. Paula is saying something else. Paula says no. Use news. Paula is saying, Shab, how dare you say that you will.
Yeah, you have to apply the setting in the discussion forum that it sends a message to all the all the messages in the forum. It's not there on default. So on the news, it sends the message to everyone. Even if you haven't put the setting.
Okay.
The discussion forum.
All right, I'll see to it. Or in the future, if to be on the safe side, I would. It doesn't really matter. I can send by both. Actually, I can send the message by Peppy also. That also goes to everybody.
Mhm.
But I'll check it. Good that you guys pointed out, Shiny and Paula. I'll look into and see what can be done. Yeah, but all right. So let's meet next week, and have a nice weekend and enjoy yourself.
Thank you.
You too. Thank you.
Thank you.
Take care. Bye bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Cheers. Thanks. Bye bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks. Bye. Okay. Oh, doesn't go. No, it does.